Alright, so today we're going over merge text strings to gain insight. And it says that we're going to be also covering other commands such as other SQL commands such as average, group by, and order by to gain insight. So our objective is to merge text strings to gain insights. And so what we will be doing is, let's just go right to the example. It says use concat, and we're going to be concatenating what looks like two columns. First name is start station name, then comma, and then the word to, and space at the beginning of the word to and behind the word to, followed by a comma, and then end station name. So these three items are going to be concatenated. The station, start station name, to, and end station name. And the concatenation is going to have it, for example, if the start station name was Jade Station and the ending station name was, for example, Mill Station, then the concatenation should be or would be Jade Station space 2 space Mill Station. So that's pretty straightforward for concatenation. And the insight, I guess, that we're going to be getting from that, or like what we are going to be creating, is a third. It'll create a new column, and we're going to be labeling it as route. So basically the concatenation of the first station and the end station to just make it more digestible information. So it's as route, and then you'll have it as actual information that you can use, your insight. So your end station or your start station to end station labeled as route, and it's going to be all in one column. And obviously the benefit of that is because now it's manageable data, something that you can actually use, instead of it just being the start station name and then the end station name in two separate different columns. Now it's in one column, and you can actually use that. It's labeled as one column as route in start station name to the end station name, and having that data, those columns joined together, just makes it easier to use as insight, I guess, as data, to be able to communicate that. So Jade Station to Mill Station would be that column, and now you can use that new column to help pull out more insight, because now we know the end station and the start station names combined as the route. So we can say this route had X amount of time, or was used by X amount of people. So that's where it becomes another useful data point. Let's see, on line 4, enter count as number of trips. To count the number of trips, the asterisk tells SQL to count the number of rows you're selecting. Okay, so we're going to be entering the count function, and it's going to be count with parentheses, asterisk, and it's going to be labeled as number of trips. So the asterisk tells SQL to count the number of rows you're selecting. Each row represents a trip. So you can count all the rows you've selected to count. So you can count all of the rows you've selected to count the number of trips. Okay. So my application, or my implementation, is using SQL-practice.com, using their database and their website. I'm using a similar approach as far as gaining insight using two different columns. I'm not going specifically using concatenation, but the premise or like the thought behind it is that I'm getting the information from two different columns to create a third column to be able to use that third column's combined information to possibly pull out more insight or more questions or more just more insight. So for me, going into SQL-practice.com and then using their database, I decided to go into the admissions table. Decided to use their admissions table, and the columns that I'm using was discharge date and the admissions date. I have show you just the page in general, or the table in general. I apologize. And you see the admissions date and the discharge date and the diagnosis. So there is no count or difference between the admissions, the discharge date, and the type of condition for the diagnosis. So for me, I was able to look at this and see that there could be something here between the discharge dates and the diagnosis, maybe the number of conditions for these diagnoses. So we can group these diagnoses together and see how many for each of these diagnoses there are. So I'm sure there were several for each one of these that we can group them together. And then after being grouped together, we can see the average time for each one of these diagnoses. So for example, let's see, I think I have it. Yeah. There we go. So for first stage labor, have a count of 12 entries for first stage labor. Let's select from it. Select everything from admissions. Ordered by diagnosis. And we said we had 12 count of first stage labor. So I'm just going to manually count this real quick. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Right? Yep. That last one was 12. I missed it. 12. So, okay, that's correct. So first stage labor has 12 entries. So counts correct on that. And days difference. So to get days difference, see, as days difference, that's my command. We're using the round, average, and cast together. And we're getting the admission date minus the discharge date, and we're making it in Julian date for both of them. So admissions date minus the discharge date. And I'm casting it as integer to make sure it's integer because it was dates, and then we're getting the average. After the subtraction, right? After it becomes the integer. And finally it's rounding. As days difference. So if I wanted to verify this, I could, and I guess I'm just going to do it. Let's get all 12 entries. First stage labor. All right. And I already kind of set it up. 12 entries, so 12 columns, all right. And I copied and pasted the 12 entries into the Excel. And now let's take a look at doing an average between days difference. .5 is the average, and then it's rounded up to 4. Okay. So on line 4, that's the step we're on. We're using the count function to gain insight. And we just covered it. So we went into the next step, which was using the round, average, and cast. And we used the rounded, average, and cast to calculate the difference here, right? let's try to understand this SQL code and see what they were doing and see if we can break it down. So select user type. So they're selecting the specific column inside this table. And they're concatenating start station name with the end station, and they're having it labeled as route as the new column. Additionally, they're counting each row entry individually, and the column is being named number of trips or num trips. And then also they are using the round, average, and cast as duration because they're trying to get the length of time for each trip. And let's see, I believe it was because it was in seconds and they wanted to put it in minutes. Calculate average trip duration, round, average cast. It uses a cast function to cast trip duration as an integer and divides that number by 62, then work the number of seconds to minutes. Yeah, there you go. It uses the average function to find the average duration of each route. And it uses a round function to round the output to 2 decimals. Okay. Then finally, they're grouping it by station name, end station name, and then user type. And they're ordering it by number of trips. So what's being selected is being grouped by start station name, end station name, and then user type. So all of those row entries are being grouped together by those 3 variables: start station name, end station name, and then user type. And finally, it's after those are grouped together, then it's ordered by number of trips and num trips, which was let's see, what do I have? Ordered by. Oh, okay, I do have it ordered by as well. So in my example, I have it ordered by diagnosis. I have it grouped by diagnosis and then ordered by diagnosis as well. And they have it descending. In the example, it's descending, but I believe I didn't have the descend afterwards, but I believe it defaults. I'm just gonna verify by typing in descend, but I'm pretty sure it just defaults like that. No, it defaults as ascend. Alright, a mistake. Yeah. So the default is ascend. Okay, yeah. So I believe that pretty much covers today's learning lecture.